Hello everybody. Welcome to I Read Sometimes. Happy Friday. I hope you guys made it. I made it, but at what cost? At what cost? So today we are covering Zikora by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. It's a short story. It's about 39 pages and it's only available through Amazon. So hence why I am showing the phone, because I read it through the Kindle app on Amazon. So yeah, this is the first sort of body of work that I've read of this author. I really wanted to get into reading some of her work, but I was too shy to commit to like reading or purchasing a longer story book. So short stories are the way to go if you just want to get introduced to that author. And if you're a lazy reader like me, because I'm a lazy reader, so if you're feeling like I want to read something but I'm not strong enough to fully commit to a book yet, so short stories are really nice, especially the ones that are on Kindle. Let's get into the story. And this is the book journal, an old book journal before the pink one that you guys have seen. So Zikora is a story about a successful middle-aged woman in a great relationship, until she decides to tell her husband, her boyfriend, that she's pregnant, and then he abandons her. So that's the premise of the story. And yeah, it's a greatly written short story. I think I could tell that, okay, Chimamanda is a bit poetic, or sounds a bit poetic. I'm not sure what poetic means, but the way in which she combines the words that she uses to make them sound romantic was really nice. It kept you reading. Two lines or two quotes in this book nicely wrap up what this short story is about. The first one is, ours was an ancient story. The woman wants the baby and the man doesn't want the baby. And a middle ground does not exist. What would a middle ground be? We can't have half a baby. So it sort of explores that premise. And another nice sort of quote I really liked was, it's funny how pregnancy is like body hair. We scrub and scrape our armpits and underlip and legs because we hate to have hair there. Then we pamper and treat the hair on our heads because we love the hair there. But it's all hair. It is the one thing that makes the difference. Very few characters. For example, there's Zikora, there's her mother, there's her cousin, and then there's her boyfriend through flashbacks. So the story is told, we begin basically in a hospital. She's first of all giving birth to this child and her mother's there. And in just like the first few pages, you see her sort of relationship with her mother, and you can tell what sort of mother she is. She's those, typical, if I could say, African mothers who are like, you know what, be strong, like, let's get this over with. You're an old girl, this birth thing is supposed to be, not as difficult as you're making it seem. And we keep on having flashbacks to Zikora and sort of wondering, where's the father of this baby? And then she sort of gives us flashbacks, and she also tries to contact the father of the baby to tell him that, hey, listen, at the hospital, I've given birth, and basically he's blocked her, or he blocks her, and he's like not about it. So the first impression you get of him is that typical man who's just like, you know what, I'm out whenever the responsibility of a child comes into play. But as the story goes, and she tells us how basically they met and how the relationship was, you're like, okay, how did he change from this being this amazing boyfriend and amazing guy to now suddenly being a typical man? We exposed a lot to Zikora's ex-boyfriend, father, baby daddy's character, right? And one thing about him is he's a nice guy. So you never expect that he'll suddenly do a 180 and just decide to be an absent father. We're introduced to him. And the nice thing about reading through Kindle is that you can have like highlights in the book and go exactly where you remember, or yeah, it's easy to navigate going back and forth in the book because you can make notes. The first note I sort of had for him was Chimamanda writes that he volunteers details about his life, and at first his openness confused me because I dated men who were so guarded they made secrets of simple things, right? This man is described amazingly. He's just like, a communicator. The relationship was great. They met each other's parents and families. It was just nice, and they were both lawyers, I think, middle-aged, so everything was just cool, until it wasn't. And even when it wasn't, the moment where he decides or tells her that, hey, I'm not going to be part of this baby's life, he's still very nice about it, which angered me. Because he says to her, I think I should leave. Is that okay? Question mark. He asked as though he needed my permission to abandon me. He would kill you, but he would do it courteously. He is a nice man, and it really angers you because you don't understand where the change or the difference is from being this great, amazing boyfriend to now suddenly not wanting to do anything about the child. And it's a conversation, or it's a sort of premise that's really interesting, especially in today's life. If you go on Twitter, there are conversations about sort of baby daddies who have like narcissistic characteristics, and a lot of people are saying to these mothers that, hey, you should have chosen your baby daddy. You should have done a better job in choosing the baby daddy, or do some sort of vetting process. But this sort of story sort of shows you that, hey, this guy was a great guy, and you think that he would be a great baby daddy or great father because he was sort of woke, right? But there were signs in Zikora's story that, hey, like, okay, maybe this guy isn't thinking towards that, or isn't well educated about female reproductive system or process or the menstrual cycle, right? He's well educated, but there's a situation where they were discussing this member of parliament in USA. I forgot how they call it, but I think this guy, a member of parliament, is confused that why don't women arrange their periods in such a way that get their periods in a more suitable time of the month, right? So that guy was insinuating that women can control when they get their periods, and they can just decide that, no, not today, the other day. They can delay it, right? And they were having this conversation, and she was just laughing, assuming that he knows, right? He knows what's right and wrong. So he's just laughing that, hey, this guy. And at first you can see the confusion, or well, you read about the confusion that this guy, the baby daddy, had hearing the story, but he didn't say anything, which is very scary because I think I've noticed that a lot of men or a lot of people don't want to ask questions, especially the difficult questions on female reproduction or the menstrual cycle, even though they learned it in school. But I think because they don't go through it, it's kind of very complicated to grasp, or they still have questions or unanswered questions, so they just remain not knowing. And another thing is the communication between the two. They were great communicators, but what had happened was, I think they weren't using any protection, and she was on some sort of contraceptive. And then one day she decided to stop the contraceptive because in her mind she was thinking, okay, I'm getting old now. I think she's 39. She was thinking, okay, it would be okay. Not that she was planning the child, but it would be okay if I would fall pregnant, right? But she failed to properly communicate this with the baby daddy. So all she said was like, hey, I want to stop being on this contraceptive. And he was like, cool, because you've been complaining about this contraceptive. And in my mind, he should have asked the question of, okay, now that you're not on contraceptives and we're not using protection, in the event that we get a baby, what's going to happen? I think maybe he didn't think that far. He was just thinking that, oh, my person is struggling with this contraceptive, so let her get off it, without properly grasping that, hey, there's a possibility that we might have pregnancy scares or we might fall pregnant. And he was just like supportive with getting off this contraceptive, of which Zikora translated it as, oh, so he also wouldn't mind getting pregnant or having a child. Like that's, so there was some communication that lacked there. And another sort of character I really resonated with or got pulled towards was Zikora's mother. At first, she appears to be this typical, like, strict Nigerian African woman who is like, who doesn't show any signs of sensitivity and appears to be quite cold. But as you hear her story, you're like, oh, okay, hectic, right? Zikora does tell the story of how Zikora's father wanted a second wife, right? And this broke Zikora's mother. But she finally agreed, right? Being the good wife, she finally agreed to it with one condition, that the wife will have her own house, yes, but he will always sort of sleep or live in her house as the first wife. And this was good in the first sort of couple of years until the second wife started having kids. And then one day, this man just came in with no regard for her feelings and was packing his bags and saying that he's going to live with now the second wife, and which was very insensitive because he knows the grounds in which he got the second wife was there's this condition, and he honestly didn't want to hear anything about it. And there's a nice sort of thingy to wrap up her story, or to like a summary of her side of the story, the mother, where Zikora says, how had I never really seen her? It was my father who destroyed, and it was my mother I blamed for the ruins left behind. So yeah, man, it just talks about how marriage, especially like a toxic sort of marriage, really breaks down women, specifically African women and mothers, to a point where they become cold and they become these different versions of themselves. And us as the kids, we blame them, like, why are you like this? Or why haven't you left? Or all of these questions, your blame and your anger goes towards the mother, without seeing how it's the man that destroyed and continuously destroys this woman. Overall, Zikora was a great read. It was great because it was a short story, 39 pages. You could finish it very quickly compared to like a normal size book. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And knowing in this channel how I have closure issues, I don't think it bothered me that much that it was short, and obviously it won't necessarily wrap up every storyline because it's a short story. And so what I liked about it is that it sort of leaves you like thinking about it more. It leaves you thinking about all of the issues. I think I read this book exactly a year to date, but I still think about some of the premises that are there. It covers so much for a book that is 39 pages, and I definitely recommend it to you guys. So if you guys have read it or any of the author's other work, what do you think about it, or what do you think about some of the premises that I've discussed in this video? We can have a chat in the comment section. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great weekend and time. Happy reading, everyone. Thank you.